In a world where hepatitis doesn't seem to exist, two lovers are dedicated to getting to know each other and sharing their lives through saliva. Get your school supplies, scissors and a barber ready because it's time to enter the steamy world of Nazo na Kanojo at Kusu. One morning, like any other, the young Tsubaki wakes up from having a super metaphorical dream that as he is a teenager, he does not give it too much importance and heads to school. There he meets a new and strange transfer student named Makoto Yurib. Makoto sits next to him and immediately demonstrates some very strange attitudes, since during recess she spends her time sleeping and does not interact with her other classmates, who soon decide to isolate her and is instantly labeled as a freak. In the middle of class, the young girl also begins to have a strange outburst of laughter, which makes all her classmates uncomfortable. Classes end and Yurib continues to sleep. When Akira Tsubaki wakes up, Yurib, at the end of the school day, finds his face charming and for some reason remembering his strange dream, he ends up tasting some of the young girl's saliva that had been left on the table. Sabaki realizes how strange the situation is and tries to return to his normal life without telling anyone about what happened. After having a dream where he and Yurib dance on top of a strange city, our protagonist can't seem to get his partner out of his mind. As the days go by, everything returns to normal and Sabaki suddenly comes down with a fever, which does not go unnoticed by Yurib, who suspects what may be happening. Yurib goes to Tsubaki's house with the excuse of handing in her homework, but when they are together, the young girl explains what is happening to her. Yurib makes Tsubaki confess that he drank her saliva and the young man admits it, so she gives him more of her slime, which cures his fever, explaining that his symptoms were the result of withdrawal from not receiving any more saliva. The two young men become friends, and so Yurib begins to meet with Sabaki every day to give him more of her saliva, because if he doesn't consume some of her saliva every day, he will get sick again, like Tsubaki, who begins to fall in love with Yurib and decides to confess to her after a few days. When Yurib asks Sabaki to profess his love in a way that only he can do, Tsubaki first tries to kiss her, but she tells him that this is not original, so our hero proves it to him by tearing up a picture he had in his wallet of his high school crush. After such a show of love, Yurib starts dating excessively and explains to her that when that happens, you are happy. Yurib asks Sabaki if she is a virgin, and embarrassed, our prota says yes after explaining that the reason he laughs in class was because a voice was telling him that Sabaki would be the first person they would have naughty things with, so Yurib agrees to be his girlfriend. Despite being sweethearts, the progress of the relationship between Sabaki and Yurib is null. The young man has become obsessed with his new girlfriend, but she, except for the willingness to share her saliva, shows no interest in him. Sabaki decides to ask his friend named Kuai Yuano what he could do to advance his relationship with Yurib, though none of his advice seems to work with her. First he tries to walk by taking her hand, but she refuses. Then he tries to make conversation by asking them about their hobbies, and she reveals that she is fond of scissors, revealing to him that she always carries a pair of scissors in her underwear. And when he apologizes for seeing it, she tells him that it doesn't matter if he sees in her underwear. That night, Sabaki has another dream with Yurib in the same city. Only this time she is in her underwear with her sisters, but wakes up not understanding too much of what she dreamed. The next day, the young woman changes the route the two always walk and gives him a candy, but Sabaki does not accept it, so she takes it. Then the two separate and he will wonder, offended by not having received the candy. But before leaving, she takes the candy out of her mouth and gives it to him. Sabaki tries to hug Yurib, but she reacts slowly and attacks him with the scissors, warning him to never hug her again without her permission. And for anyone who listens to my cell phone, now has to subscribe. Another day passes and Yurib turns down an invitation to the movies from her boyfriend. So our prota finally breaks down and asks him if they are really in a relationship or not. Yurib takes Sabaki to an abandoned house, tells Sabaki to close his eyes, and then takes off his clothes and then feeds Sabaki his drool, explaining that his drool is a special bond that lets them know how they feel. Tasting Yurib's saliva, Sabaki feels arousal and reveals to him that it is the same thing she feels, and he feels it by tasting her saliva, because what she will never be able to hide her feelings for him. The demonstration is over and he explains that what he felt was due to the fear that Sabaki would open her eyes and see her naked. And when he asks her what would have happened if she knew, she would attack him again with her sisters. So the next day after Tsubaki has a strange dream involving Yurib. As the two walk to school, Yurib asks him if something is wrong and he says no. But she sticks a finger in his mouth and drinks Sabaki's saliva so he can remember the dream he had. In luxurious detail, Sabaki sees his friend kissing Iyuko Oka, to whom Oka explains that she is his girlfriend, whom he has been secretly dating for a while. When Sabaki asks him why he was telling her that he doesn't have a girlfriend, he replies that he is embarrassed, so he prefers to keep the relationship a secret. Sabaki withdraws, but not without noticing Iyuko's lips which are moist from Kui's saliva, and it occurs to her that a kiss is not a bad way to exchange saliva. When Sabaki expresses his desire to kiss Yurib, she gives him a vial of her saliva, telling him to drink it before going to bed. She also tells him that she understands that the reason he wants the kiss is because he saw his friend with his girlfriend and became jealous of their relationship. That night, Sabaki drinks Urabe's saliva and has an accidental kiss with Urabe, feeling disappointed that Urabe did not put his feelings into it. The next day, Urabe, understanding her boyfriend's needs, offers to give him his first kiss, but Sabaki realizes that they should only kiss when they come to understand each other's feelings. Later at school, another boy in the class, Agada, confesses to Urabe and asks her to go out with him. Urabe tells this to Tsubaki, who, jealous, decides to tell Agada to take a step back since she is his girlfriend, but the young girl tells him that she has decided to give him an answer the next day, forbidding Sabaki to interfere. That night, a worried Sabaki can't sleep, fearful of what his girlfriend might choose and also offended that he has to. After all, he is her boyfriend and the choice has already been made. Sabaki gets nervous because Agada is not a bad choice because he is a good sportsman and popular with the school girls. The next day he hasn't slept all night. Urabe, who is behaving stranger than usual, feeds Agada some of his saliva and upon hearing that he doesn't feel any different, he rejects it. After doing the same with Sabaki, which gives him a bloody nose, Urabe explains to him that the excitement and nerves he feels at that moment are the same ones she has since. For the avoidance of doubt, she decided not to wear underwear that day. In this way, Urabe explains to her how her reaction to his drool is proof that he is the only one she shares this bond with, and not just anyone, since if she had a bond with Agada, he would have felt the same way too. Yabe gives his panties to Tsubaki and the two walk home together holding hands. The male students are in a state of complete. As soon the PE season will start and they will be able to see the female students in their gym uniforms. And although it hadn't crossed Sabaki's mind, he now realizes that he will be able to see Urabe in gym uniform, and that excites him. Ayuko decides to have lunch with Urabe and to everyone's surprise, the young girl accepts and the two share lunch. As they return home, Sabaki tells Urabe that he is very happy that she has made a friend because except for him, she has not had much contact with her other classmates. Urabe makes it clear to him that she is not interested in making friends, and says goodbye, but not before giving him his daily doses of saliva, not realizing that they are being watched from afar. When Urabe gets a scratch, the next day during physical education, Ayuko takes her to the infirmary for treatment. Ayuko, who works in the infirmary, shares a drink with Urabe and tells her that she would like to be her friend, but the young girl coldly rejects her. Ayuko accepts the refusal but tells him that she won't stop trying, but before retreating she discovers that she suddenly gave of the same leg injury as Urabe. Urabe suspects that the exchange of saliva when they both took the bottle is responsible for the situation and decides to cut his hand. With the cut hand, he makes Ayuko drink from his saliva and is surprised when the wound on his hand manifests on Ayuko's hand. Thus he deduces that Urabe's saliva can also transfer injuries, which shows that Ayuko has a similar connection to the prota. Ayuko confesses that she is aware of her relationship with Tsubaki and mentions how she felt fascinated by Urabe after seeing her with our prota. She also confesses to him that she has feelings for Tsubaki, but by dating her friend, this would cook up a problem. So she decided to approach the young girl through Urabe and repeats her offer to be her friend. But Urabe tells her that their bond is only between her and Tsubaki, so again she rejects his offer to become friends. At the end of the day, Urabe gives of his saliva to Tsubaki, who experiences his girlfriend's wounds. Before they each go home the next day, Ayuko feeds some of her slime to Urabe and asks her what it tastes like. She replies that the taste of her saliva is sweet, so Ayuko deduces that she has not yet kissed Sabaki, because if she had, she would have recognized the taste of sweetness. Then Urabe and Ayuko begin a daily routine of having lunch together. It is beach season and Urabe, along with his faithful sisters, go to the ocean in their bathing suits. At school, boys and girls do separate physical activities. While the girls practice swimming, the boys play soccer, as everything should be. However, the boys are more interested in spying on the girls than in playing, so they constantly throw the ball out of the field with the excuse of going to retrieve it by spying on the girls. However, the only one who is not able to carry out this task is our protagonist, who misses the sight of Urabe in a bathing suit as they walk home. Tsubaki can't help but smell the scent emanating from Urabe's skin and gets too close to the point that she threatens him with her scissors. However, if long it rains and the two take cover under a tree, here, Urabe gives Tsubaki permission to taste her sweat. So apparently all this girl's fluids do something, and our hero sees an image of her in a bathing suit in the ocean. When summer vacation arrives and although they can no longer at school, the two continue their tradition of exchanging Tsubaki. However, he wants to invite Urabe and do something, since the only connection they have is when she arrives, shares saliva and leaves without saying anything. In this way and determined, Sabaki manages to get up the courage to ask Urabe for a date on the beach. She accepts, but says that it can be a week from now because she is going to visit her father. So the young man accepts excitedly. During that week, Sabaki does not seem to experience withdrawal syndrome, and it is not very clear to us why, if the saliva will last a week or what, but the series does not give us an answer to that question, so we move on to the next scene. A week passes and Sabaki and attend Urabe head to the beach where they eat yakisoba and swim in the sea. However, The young woman is wearing a scarf that covers her bikini bottom and Sabaki gets a little frustrated at not being able to see the swimsuit in all its glory. Urabe takes off the scarf for him, revealing that she tanned with her scissors on, leaving the mark on her skin. Seeing the tan lines from Makoto's scissors gives him a nosebleed, something Urabe later experiences when he tastes Sabaki's drool on the way home. He confesses to her the reason for his excitement and she tells him that she will show him the tan line again next year. When they visit the beach again while shopping for clothes, Sabaki runs into Ayuko who talks to her about addressing her boyfriend Kuai. Ayuko deduces that Urabe and Sabaki do not tutti each other through an exchange of drool with Sabaki because that now seems to be the new normal. She then approaches Urabe in a similar manner and talks to her about first names, obviously before Urabe excuses himself. In the park, Sabaki takes advantage of a sleeping Uribe by whispering a first name to her Makoto. Sabaki has another strange dream again and it turns out that she wants a picture of Urabe when they go to school. Urabe agrees, but when he asks her to smile, she refuses because that would be a false picture and not a faithful one. So in the end, she refuses to take the picture. Later, Tsubaki waits for Urabe at a gate and his old flame named Kakawa, the young woman whose photo he snapped at the beginning of this story, invites him for coffee. After declining the invitation, Sabaki finds Urabe hiding at one end of the bridge, who says she doesn't want to interrupt the conversation. As they return, Urabe and Sabaki talk about Sabaki's crush, and he tells her that it never occurred to him to accept the invitation as it would anger her. Having no other way to express himself, Urabe gives Sabaki a drink of his saliva and the young man starts crying. She explains that what she feels is not anger but a deep sadness, and that if he had gone with her, she would be heartbroken. After the exchange of saliva, the two understand each other's feelings before Tsubaki takes out her camera again to try to take a picture of Urabe, who lets her take a picture with her tongue out. Although it is not a smile, Tsubaki knows it is what she will get the most out of him, and decides to treasure the picture by putting it in her wallet. After showing an impressive display on the track, Urabe is asked to participate in a relay race for the sports festival, although she rejects the idea of joining the track team or any club that involves activities outside of school hours. As they return home, Urabe tells our Proto about the situation and although he encourages joining, she tells him that she has made up her mind and won't do it because it means she won't be able to walk home with our Proto. This moves our hero, who unsuccessfully tries to hug her. The next day, Ayuko annoys Urabe by telling him that the reason she doesn't want to run for Tsubaki, which makes the young girl the challenge of her legs, and our offended heroine sets out to train. Sabaki goes to train him and is very happy to see that his girlfriend will be integrated into the group of students, but that night he realizes that the more popular Urabe becomes, the time the two will spend together will be less and less. When the students change their winter uniforms, Sabaki catches a cold after hearing Ayuko about how she wore a bikini. To help Ku get over a cold, Urabe secretly puts on a bikini and under her coat and gives Sabaki some of her saliva, which helps her recover. The day of the sports festival arrives. Urabe talks to Ayuko and the two compare notes, but Ayuko, who discovers that Urabe did not show her boyfriend the swimsuit due to the fact that the young girl actually beyond her behavior, is actually very shy. When the competitions begin, Urabe manages to help his team win the relay race. Our protagonist is very happy to see how the young girl is surrounded by admirers, and the leader of the athletics club invites her again to be part of the group, and Urabe thinks about it seriously. Later on the way back home, a proud Sabaki suggests Sabaki to join the track team, and Urabe tells her that he knows she is lying because he deep down doesn't want to be separated from her, and she understands. Urabe once again rejects the offer to join the track team because she prefers to spend time with him, declaring him the owner of her legs. Sabaki has a dream in which she gets to squeeze Urabe's chest and can't get the feeling out of her head. Our hero decides to take a walk to clear his head and goes for a walk, but everything reminds him of his girlfriend's breasts. Taking a walk, he decides to go in the direction Urabe usually takes after school and arrives at an apartment block. Just then, Urabe appears after shopping and tells him that his apartment is in the building. Urabe invites our protagonist to his apartment for a drink. The two young men are alone because the young woman's parents have gone out, so his imagination starts to get the better of him after catching Makoto. When she stumbles, apparently scared by lightning, Sabaki almost reaches his chest, but Urabe stops him. After getting Tsubaki to tell him about her dreams, she feeds him some saliva while grabbing her own chest, giving him a stronger feeling. She then allows Sabaki the opportunity to touch them for himself, which causes Sabaki to become more aggressive and kisses his ears until he realizes that Urabe is crying and leaves. Urabe is left crying and Sabaki runs away in the rain, horrified at what he has just done, fearful that she is never going to forgive him. The next day, after Urabe receives some advice from Ayuko about the new experiences she is feeling, Sabaki asks Urabe to slap her by way of apology. Then Urabe explains that she is not angry, but that she did not understand the feeling she has when she touches his ear, which apparently is one of her sensitive points. The two young men become friends and she apologetically teaches him to drink the saliva of our protagonist. Sharing the pain of the slap, the young woman withdraws while Tsubaki is left feeling the emotions she feels when she touches his ear. Noticing that Urabe has a serious case of bedhead, Ayuko fixes her up with a new hairstyle. Urabe soon gets a lot of attention for her new hairstyle, which makes Sabaki a bit jealous. When they go home, Sabaki comments to Urabe to go back to her old hairstyle and messes up her hair at his request. As they continue the trip, she confesses to our protector that she really enjoyed him messing up her hair. The next day, Ayuko, who wants to do her hair again, is frustrated when Urabe refuses and accuses Tsubaki of possessiveness, as the young man does not want to share her beauty with the rest of the classmates. As Ayuko scolds her, Urabe shows her the feeling of having her hair messed up, which she comes to enjoy. On the way home, Ayuko asks her boyfriend to tousle her hair and he obeys even though he doesn't understand anything, and indeed, the young girl enjoys this experience. Meanwhile, Tsubaki is frustrated when one of the male students starts selling pictures of Urabe's alternative hairstyle and learns of the existence of an idol named Momoko Amai, who bears a strong resemblance to Urabe. After saying goodbye, Tsubaki soon impulsively goes to the bookstore and buys Momoko's photo album after realizing that she does indeed look like his girlfriend. However, while shopping, he crosses paths with his friend who sees him buying the magazine. The young man arrives home and enjoys looking at the magazine. Urabe's photos are a hit and Ayuko asks her boyfriend if he buys any and he replies that he does not. Ayuko, when she asks him if our prota bought a photo, he says no, but that he did find it in the bookstore buying Momoko's book. When Urabe finds out from Ayuko, who found out from the boy, she asks her boyfriend to show her the book to corroborate if they are really alike. While Prota takes her the book and shows her the pictures, she couldn't help but see a resemblance and asks him which is his favorite picture. Sabaki shows him a picture where Momoko is smiling and Urabe sheathes his scissors and destroys the magazine. As he walks away, Urabe reminds our hero that she is his girlfriend and he shouldn't go around looking at those kinds of magazines. Sabaki stands in the square with the destroyed magazine and, smiling, realizes that they are both a bit possessive. Our Prota meets Aika, the girl he was in love with. The two go to talk in a square where Aika thinks about our Prota that she always knew he was in love with her, but he never did anything. Sabaki doesn't mention Urabe when Aka asks him if he is in a boyfriend, so he replies that he is single. Aika tells him that she recently broke up with her boyfriend. To be more precise, he broke up with her, which caused her to make extreme decisions, such as cutting her hair. Sabaki notices that as he cries, a little saliva comes out of his mouth and as it seems that's what he likes, he can't help but think what saliva will taste like from someone other than Urabe. Aika realizes and offers her saliva and he accepts only to regret it at the last moment for fear that this action will ruin what he has with Urabe. Aika deduces that our Prota has a girlfriend and asks for her name, to which our Prota gives it to her, which is the fourth worst mistake so far. That day, Aika returns home and realizes that being rejected by Tsubaki makes her love him even more. The next day, Aka decides to approach Urabe, inviting him to her school's cultural festival on Sunday with the news that our Prota might be there. Urabe, who recognizes her immediately and half reads her intentions, tries not to give her much conversation, but is intrigued by the invitation. That same night, Aka calls Sabaki with a fake wound on her face, telling her that her ex-boyfriend hit her and threatened to hurt her again at the festival, manipulating our Prota to go to the festival with her and pretend to be her boyfriend. Urabe asks our Prota what his plans are for Sunday, the day of the festival, and he lies to her, but she suspects something. But one realized Sabaki tries to make up an alibi in front of Urabe but soon learns the truth from Ayuko. When our Prota goes to the Sunday festival, Aka shows up in her old high school uniform. Sabaki is not very comfortable with Aika clinging to his arm and asks him to take some distance, but the young girl tells him that she is doing it because she is afraid of her ex. While Ayuko goes to the festival with the boy, she sees Sabaki with Aika and decides to follow them. Sabaki and Aika sneak into her old classroom and Aika tries to make the young man remember everything he felt for her and asks him to be together, promising that if he accepts her, she will grow her hair back and everything will be as they remember it. In this way, she puts her finger in his mouth and offers her saliva to our protagonist. Ayuko, who observes everything, tries to take a picture to have proof of the infidelity of our Prota. Urabe appears in a robot box just when Sabaki refuses to drink Aka's saliva, but instead of getting angry, he suggests that they do a blind test of each other's drool to see which one our Prota prefers. Sabaki gets an instant nosebleed from Urabe's drool because she was naked inside her disguise. Aika gets naked and tries to give our Prota her drool but stops when it starts to rain, making it clear that her advances on our Prota were simply an attempt to get over the loss of her boyfriend who had feelings for someone else even when he was dating her. Urabe tastes of Aika's slime and sensing that he has long had unrequited love, but assuring her that someday he will find the right person, at which point our Prota removes his blindfold and sees the girls naked, prompting slaps from both of them. As Sabaki and Urabe leave together, she tells him that eventually her kiss with him will be her first, eliciting a smile as she tastes his saliva. Urabe is still intimidated by the idea that our Prota has seen her naked and it doesn't help matters that Ayuko has taken a picture of her. The two young women fight over the picture and Urabe eventually destroys it with her scissors, which instead of scaring Ayuko, excites her even more. As our prota is a bit shy around Urabe after seeing her like this, he asks her to taste his saliva to experience how nervous he is the next day. When Brief uses his scissors against our prota for trying to hug her, he is surprised to see that he has made a small cut on her forehead. When Urabe takes our prota home to have the wound treated, he notices that his scissors have become less accurate, which he believes is caused by a strange dream he had after tasting our prota's saliva. When Urabe gives our prota more of his saliva, he starts imagining Urabe naked and ends up hitting his head while trying to avoid hugging our girl on impulse. After listening to his reasoning, Urabe decides to hug our prota willingly, which in turn brings back the scissor technique. The next day is Ryalko Suwano. One of his classmates offers to replace Sabaki's gauze. Tsubaki opts to keep it because it was the gauze given to him by Urabe. Later that day, Yoruba again initiates a hug. While out shopping, Urabe meets Sabaki's sister Yoko, who takes him to a coffee shop where she tells him about old loves and asks him if she has a boyfriend. Yoko tells him that she had a boyfriend during high school, a young man who was also obsessed with people who sleep and leave saliva, and that morning, when her brother saw him drooling, he asked her the same thing, and that question brought back memories. When Urabe asks what happened to that boyfriend, she mentions that she promised her late mother to take care of Sabaki until he finishes his studies, so she has no time for romance. Sabaki's family goes to pay their respects at his mother's grave, and when our prota asks him what he talked to his mother, his sister tells him that she promised to keep taking care of him like a mother until he finishes college and proves himself. When his family asks our protagonist what he said to her, he does not answer, but admits that he told her about Urabe. Days later, Urabe asks our prota to go to his mother's grave next Sunday and pay his respects. Urabe meets our prota and is surprised to see her very formally dressed. After paying his respects and talking about our prota's mother, Urabe wants to feel the memories about his mother and decides to exchange saliva immensely. While Tsubaki touches the tombstone, Urabe and Sabaki end up shedding tears and feel that their bond has deepened as they continue to walk and talk and also laugh. And thus we end this strange, really strange series.